Hi everyone, my name is John. Welcome back to my channel. I am here to do an end of the month video about what I read in May. Now, as you might notice, it is not the end of the month. My original goal at the beginning of 2025 was to make a video posted on the last Friday of every month about what I had read. I don't usually do TBR videos, but I'm trying to make videos telling you about what I have read instead of just what I want to read. Because if I do the former, well, these videos would be endlessly long. So May was an interesting month because it was short in a lot of ways. I spent the first week of it catching up on stuff I had started in March and April. Not just catching up on, but actually finishing 4 or 5 books that I had started a couple of months earlier. And then the last week of May, I was out of town, tending to some stuff that just allowed me to get next to no reading done. So I had about 2 to 2.5 weeks for May. And that would be why I have 3 books here, none of which I finished. But I have gotten into them to some degree or another. So let me start with what I think so far is the best, and then we'll work our way down to good and questionable at the end, although, like I said, I haven't finished any of them. The first one is a new book that I bought last month. It is a book that you'll see again very soon when I show the books that I bought from the Yale University press sale that they had that just ended on May 31st. Apologize if I didn't announce that on my channel. I know some people appreciate knowing about that. Princeton also had one for all of May. Both sites had 50% off absolutely everything. So I've got 9 or 10 books, and this was one of them. So I'll talk about this a bit more in that video, but I wanted to show it since it is one thing that I started last month. It is The Anglo-Saxon World by Nicholas J. Higham and Martin J. Ryan. And I don't know if you can exactly tell by the size of my hand here. It is basically what you would call a coffee table book. It is much larger than the average paperback. And it's also just beautifully illustrated. Just to show you some, turning to random pages here. One of the holes in my education about English history is pre-1066, pre-Norman invasion history. So I'm kind of solid post-Norman invasion, at least for a few centuries. But everything from the collapse of the Roman Empire to 1066, with the exception of some of the stuff about the Viking invasions, not as much. So I got this. I'm reading it with someone in the Historathon Discord, and we are slowly, very slowly, making our way through it. And it's very good. It touches on pretty much every topic that you would expect something like this to touch on. Obviously, it's not comprehensive because it's only 440 pages, and a lot of that is pictures, visuals. Apologies if you can hear my cat in the background. He has social anxiety. But it has stuff on art, literature, society, numismatics, architecture, cultural, social history, the growths of towns and villages, what the fall of the Roman Empire did to England. So it's basically sort of a catch-all book of saying, 4 or 500 AD up through, like I said, 1066. So this is a great one-stop shop primer of a book if you want to learn anything about the Anglo-Saxon world. And also, I think I mentioned it, but it's from Yale. Like I said, got it at the Yale University book sale last month. Okay, let's see, what can I do with this? Next is a book that I think I requested this from Princeton University Press for 2025. They send me 4 books every year for Historathon, so 1 for each quarter, so I can read them, at least show them off on the channel. Let's see if you're interested, and maybe read them. And I started this. It's a bit out of sync with where we are in the year as far as history goes, but this is by Paula Fredrickson, and it's called Ancient Christianities, the First 500 Years. And I'm only 62 pages through the roughly 200-page book. But this is a really strong discussion of the formation of what we think of as Christian orthodoxy during the first few centuries of its birth out of a sort of Messianic Judaism. And she looks at social and cultural forces like ethnicity, religious identity, how Jews, pagans, and Gentiles encountered the story of Christ and the New Testaments. And she may eventually come to the question of canon formation in the New Testament, but she's definitely talking about, because I still have 2/3 of the book to go, but she's definitely talking about the formation of canonical ideas in Christianity. What is considered orthodox versus the dozens, hundreds maybe, of kinds of beliefs that would be eventually considered heterodox. That is heretical, basically. And therefore the plural up there. It wasn't until early church councils that they were actually considered officially heterodox, but they were. She looks at, like I said, not only ethnic identity and religious identity, but also looks at the way Roman imperial power shaped the formation of early church ideas, especially after the conversion of Constantine the Great. So, a really interesting idea, something I used to read about a lot more, maybe 15 or 20 years ago, but haven't since. So it's been a little bit of a refresher, and it's really wonderful. Also, just to mention this, if you didn't get a chance to take advantage of either university press sale, at Yale, they have 4 or 5 more books by Paula Fredrickson, which I kind of wanted to pinch myself for not getting after finding out how good this was. So she has a book on Augustine's witness theory of the Jews, and she has a few others that if Yale has another sale next year, I will definitely end up picking up if this finishes as well and as strongly as it started, because it's really good. And then last, and definitely least, is my foray into a first-time author, at least for me. And that author is Thomas Hardy. I found this version of an International Collector's Library book with the the dot still on there. I got it from a local library bookstore, and I can't show you the name on the front. It is Far from the Madding Crowd, and the plot is a little convoluted to go into in detail. I'll hold it like this. But it basically revolves around a protagonist. Her name is Bathsheba Everdeen. And you kind of know what she's going to be like as soon as you hear her first name. It's a very elusive name, and for good reason. And she has, well, she's a very vain, kind of feckless, flighty woman, at least she reads that way to me. but she's also very young. She's in her early 20s. And through the novel, she has not one, not two, but three men after her. Um, One is basically a good, upright, solid guy named Gabriel Oak, again with these elusive names. Um, elusive with an A, not with an I. And then there's another one named Boldwood. And then there's this third one that she marries, which is probably the worst choice of all. So we're not dealing with a love triangle here. We're dealing with a love rectangle, a love square, a love rhombus, a love parallelogram, if you will. Her and three men. Of course, none of them, I mean, they don't really, it's not an all at once kind of thing, but all three of them fall in love with her. And it is basically a story of her falling for the wrong man. And as I'm getting towards the end, I still have about 70 pages to go. Her, I think, slowly realizing what her vanity and her maybe the romantic notions what she had about love, how they're playing out, and how she is slowly discovering that they have failed her. And I don't know how the book ends. I have some ideas. I'm not going to speculate on camera. Prognostication is sort of a mug's game, so I'm not going to do it and make a fool of myself later when I find out I'm wrong. But, excuse me, the prose is, it's been a while since I've read anything Victorian. This was published in 1874, but it feels very much like something that was published earlier. I'm all too aware of sort of flowery Victorian prose. The floridness, the language is not really what puts me off here. I think what puts me off more than anything else is the unevenness of the pace of the action. You'll have 30 or 40 pages where the plot moves forward quite a bit, and then you'll have another 10 or 20 where he just looks at the hillside of Essex and looks at the trees and how they blow in the wind, and carriages and wagons riding up and down roads, and it's uneven. The pace is uneven for me, at least. Also, the gender roles, I'm well aware it's the 19th century, but it reads much more like a Bronte novel in time, than it does late 19th century. So it kind of sounds like it belongs to maybe a generation or two before when Hardy actually wrote it. But I'll have more fully fleshed out ideas later when I eventually review it. I eventually review everything I read on this channel sometime. But it hasn't been quite as good as I would have liked it to be. Certainly not so bad as I never plan to read anything by Thomas Hardy again. It's not horrible, but it's just not quite doing it for me. And I also think of Thomas Hardy as being a tragically pessimistic writer. And at least 300 pages in, I haven't gotten much of the tragic pessimism yet. Now, we still have, like I said, 60 or 70 pages to go. So it may be there as a wallop at the end. But I'm waiting for it. I'm prepared. I'm bracing myself if it comes. So that is all I've read this month. By the way, you hear a lot about reading slumps on BookTube. And I have been doing something since the beginning of the year, since 2025 started, and it is this. I write down every single day what I read, the books I'm reading, and how many pages I read. So for example, this is the first on little 3x5 cards of what I've read and how many pages, just so I can keep page total tracks for every month. And I didn't do it for May. And I think, I mean, aside from the fact that the first week of the month was eaten up by finishing other things, and the last week of the month was eaten up by being somewhere and doing something where I couldn't read too much, I also did not do my little sort of accountability cards. That's not what I call them, but it's kind of what it is. And the reading just kind of fell off. So, if you are someone who needs to be held answerable to something, this is a great way of doing it. You can look at your progress throughout the month and see if you're doing what you want to. And if you're not, you have something visual to remind you of how much you're falling short or how much reading time you're making or failing to make for yourself. So this is really handy. Did I restart them for June? You bet I did. Here's to hoping that June is a much more productive reading month than May was. And I think this will be one of the tricks behind getting that to actually happen. So keep your fingers crossed for me. So those are the 3 books that I have for May. I will be back soon with another review, maybe a book haul. I have the books I bought from you, like I said, also a mixed university press book haul, and some books that I've recently picked up from library book sales, bookstore sales. So those will all be forthcoming. I will talk to you soon, and I will see you later. Bye.